Well, once again, welcome to the show. The way we buy and sell real estate hasn't really changed in almost 40 years since the internet impacted the process. AI will change all of that.
We need better understanding around this stuff to humanize the technology, to make people understand or help people understand that this isn't about either or. This is about human and tech working together to create amazing experiences in real estate.
Hello, I'm Kevin Turner, and on behalf of our content partners, realty.com.au, BMT Tax Depreciation, Know How Property Finance, Get Rare Property and Apiro Marketing, welcome to this week's Realty Talk Show. That little insert you heard was Kylie Davis. Now, Kylie is a leading authority on the Australian PropTech landscape, and she's the founder and president of the PropTech Association of Australia. Make no mistake, the real estate industry will be affected by AI, and there'll be those who embrace technology now and make it happen, versus those who ignore it, and they're likely going to end up being drowned in the wake. Property is a massive fragmented industry, overdue for an upgrade. One of our sponsors, realty.com.au, this week launched AI-powered discovery search. Ex-CEO of the REA Group, realestate.com.au, Simon Baker, summed up what discovery search is when he told Daniel Street recently in our sister show, Realty Uncut.
We have to move from matching to discovery. Now, this is where AI starts to step in. Traditionally, it's been reliant on me as the searcher to really guide the process. That's really then limited. If I don't know what I don't know, I'll never find it. So then the role of an AI-driven search engine is to say, what's really important to you? Tell me where I could live. Try doing that today on REA or try doing that today on Domain. You can't, right? So that's the next evolution. That then starts to bring in more characteristics about what's important to you.
Simon Baker there, and we'll tell you more about Realty's discovery search in the show next week. Don't miss that. In the meantime, Kylie will join Bushy in just a moment to discuss how the industry, that's the real estate industry, is shaping up and how AI will impact the buying and selling process. Hey, if this is your first time with us, welcome. You're going to find us on all podcast players and through the Southern Cross Oz Stereo Network. If you like the show, make sure you hit the subscribe button and help us continue to bring you the best guests every week. We'll be back in just a moment as Bushy kicks off this week's show.
Property deductions can save you thousands of dollars each year. To make sure you maximise deductions, you need to work with the most experienced quantity surveyor in the country. BMT Tax Depreciation is the leading specialist in the industry. They've completed over 700,000 tax deduction schedules for residential investment and commercial properties Australia-wide. BMT guarantee to find double your fee in the first full financial year deductions. Call BMT on 1300 728 726 today for an obligation-free quote. Realty Talk and your host, Bushy Martin.
Okay, here's Bushy with this week's guest, Kylie Davis.
So, welcome to the Property Hub, Kylie.
Thanks, Bushy. Thanks for having me.
Really looking forward to the chat because you're really at the forefront of an area that's going to really transform and disrupt what's happening in the good old world of property. So to sort of get straight into the heart of this quite transformational subject, what are the technological and behavioural trends that you're seeing that are changing how real estate is being practiced right now?
Yeah, so I think one of the things to comment on is that we are in the middle of this. This is not coming. This is something that we're now living every single day, right? Yeah. And it's been coming for a while. And some of the trends I'm going to mention, people are probably going to roll their eyes and go, "Oh, what still is that a thing?" But what we're seeing is that we are now at tipping point around this whole idea of big data. Everywhere we go, everything we do, every breath we take, every step we take is being recorded and monitored on our phones, on our computers, like on our Fitbits and, Google Watches or Apple Watches. Everything is, we create a data stream everywhere we go and with everything we do across all of our lives, not just for property. And property has always been an industry that has had an awful lot of data around, property size and, housing type and location and suburb value and all of that sort of stuff. But when you overlay that information that we have about our market and about the asset class of, residential property, especially in Australia, and then you start to overlay that with the data that is now coming out about the people in those properties because of the devices that we're carrying and the coverage of it, it starts to give us this extraordinary power source to drive AI. And in the meantime, the other big trend is that ChatGPT has come out. Now, AI has been around for a really long time. We've been looking at automatons since Greek philosophy, since the Greek days. Homer, I think, first wrote about automatons. But what we know is ChatGPT is basically the poster child for making AI accessible to everybody. Like, we can all understand how it works. We can start to play and practice with it. And in doing that, it breaks down a lot of those last barriers that we've had to embracing it and then looking at ways that we can adopt it inside our businesses. But AI can only work with really good data. And so real estate is one of those areas that has quite astonishing data that we're able to, that as this technology grows, is coming into our space and becoming normalized. The backdrop of that is the human behavior. So if you think about how we order a cab or a pizza or what our expectations are these days around customization, so not customization as in I want it customized to me, more personalization. I want you to know who I am when I walk into Bunnings and know that I've been looking up, screen doors, and I want you to tell me that I need to go straight to aisle 45. We want to know these things because going in and being anonymous feels really impersonal. And the data is able to personalize the experiences that we have every day in so many ways. When it comes to buying your most expensive asset, though, it is a little bit like, the sort of 1990 something called up and wants its process back. And suddenly you're thrust back into this process that is opaque, it's hard to know what you're up to. It's hard to know what to do in what order. You're not sure if you can trust the people that you're being asked to talk to about things or getting information from. It is very old school, and we've gotten away with it for the time because of the time period between transactions. So, by the time, 7 years on average, although that's a little bit old now, sort of up to 12 years in some markets. But if you're doing this for the first time, or if you're doing this you haven't done it for about 12 years, you tend to forget, or you have a little bit of PTSD when you go, oh God, yeah, that's right, I remember, this is awful. But you kind of endure it because, well, it only happens once. But I think we're becoming increasingly impatient with that. If I can buy a pizza and see exactly where it's up to and how far away it is from my door, and I can do that for a product that costs me $30 maybe, I should be able to do it for something that costs me 300,000 or 3 million. There's no excuse why, especially when that process is more complicated. So we're becoming a lot more comfortable with the technology. We're producing a lot more data as a society. We are keen to see that personalization in everything that we do. We're becoming impatient with it. It feels like bad customer service, and real estate kind of really needs to get on board with these kind of trends so that humans can stay as part of this service process rather than being automated out of the equation.
Yeah, very well said. I think the thing that excites me, one, as you touched on already, that the expectations are going to increase, which will force the industry to respond. But what I also love about the intelligence aspect of the exercise is that the old reliance, the reductionist approach of trying to get it back to one or two indicators to make very expensive decisions that are often a bit of a roll of the dice, with the complexity and the ability of technology to actually embrace all of those dynamics and actually give us much better direction on what we should be doing when it's very exciting, I think. But look, you've already touched on the next one in a little bit of detail already, but from a timing perspective, we're in the cut and thrust of it.
We're right in the middle of it, and we're right in the middle of it, and you can see evidence of this in a couple of different ways. So here's the counter model to, I don't want to do technology because I like to deliver a personal service, which I hear a lot. The thing is that because our expectations as consumers now created by the mobile phones in our hands are so instantaneous and so customized and personalized, you cannot deliver a personalized service if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a mobile phone to call people, because what that turns you into, or email to support that, it's a bit of email to support that, because a couple of things. First of all, email is the least secure way on the planet to share important, crucial, deeply personal information, including bank account details, contracts, all of that sort of stuff. We are actively being targeted by cyber hackers, which is now a militarized and organized crime globally. So, and real estate agents being front and center on the internet in promoting themselves are basically putting themselves out there to be hacked. So you can't do that. But the other factor that is showing us that we are at crisis point and tipping point is this whole idea that the demands of customer service now, or what good service looks like, being so deeply personalized by the data, means that a human being can't physically deliver that themselves through a mobile phone, because all that happens is they become a bottleneck. And the only way to work your way through that, if you don't want to embrace the technology, is to work harder. And we've seen the industry try to do this for the last couple of years, and COVID kind of ramped it up even more. But this is where we see the industry starting to go into personal crisis around, or personnel crisis, where we have unprecedented amounts of burnout in the industry. We have, 65% plus of both real estate agents and property managers claiming that they experience stress and anxiety on a weekly basis aligned to their job. Numbers that show that there is no work-life balance, except in a very small proportion of people who kind of really get it and who have embraced tech. And so it's broken, like the system's broken. And there's a tipping point in every process or lack of process where you get to a point where you realize, I don't want to learn the new thing because I think it's scary and I don't understand how it works and it's going to take me time to do it. And I'm worried that there are risks involved in learning something new or running a new process, versus my old process is so broken that it is highly risky. It's really risky. It's exhausting me and it's taking me so much time. So at some point in that tipping point, you get to a point where people go, actually, you know what? I have to learn the new process because this just is not sustainable anymore. And for an increasing number of our industry, sadly, this kind of, we just need to learn the new process is ending up in, I'm going to walk away from the whole thing because I just can't physically do it. And that's where we need better technology training, or we need better understanding around this stuff to humanize the technology, to make people understand, or help people understand, that this isn't about either or. This is about human and tech working together to create amazing experiences in real estate that create delighted clients and in fact grow and build your business. It's not about, just loading people up with more problems.
Extremely well said. Now, from the sort of governance front then, what legislation is impacting the property industry in big brushstrokes as you see it?
So there's a couple of things that have recently come down that I think most principals and directors of real estate agencies may not yet be aware of. Fair Work Australia, so at a federal level, because in real estate, here's the other, unique and special thing about Australian real estate, is that we are a federated business, structure. So the irony is that Australia's single biggest asset class, which is residential property, which CoreLogic said recently, or yesterday, we're now a $10 trillion asset class, residential property, bigger than commercial by at least 9-10 times, right? Yep. But we are governed by local bylaws and state-based laws and then even local government laws in some areas. So that makes us really, as a real estate industry, that makes us very parochial and focused on our own patch. Whereas PropTech is coming over to solve the problems of the whole process. And in a PropTech mentality, the technology businesses that we see out there at the moment are basically saying, well, yeah, sure, WA is different to New South Wales, but the sales process is kind of the same. There's just some like little quirks that, or different bits that happen at different points, but the same thing happens in that people come together, they put a property on the market, they sell it, they negotiate the price, they, transact and settle it. Like this is how this goes. So PropTech comes at it from this sort of big picture down point of view, whereas real estate agents and property managers can get very caught up in the day-to-day of the detail. What is happening though at the same time? So we're good at solving things that are common issues across the whole landscape, and we need to do that as a technology industry, because if you can solve for 7 states and 2 territories in Australia, you can then pretty much add 52 states from the US or the UK, because it's just we're used to dealing with that complexity. So we're really good at solving and simplifying complexity, whereas the real estate industry tends to get very bogged down in its local complexity. What is happening though too at a federal level is that the federal government has now, with Fair Work laws, changed the definitions or added to the definitions of work health and safety to include mental health. And under those, and they came in April this year. So now directors and principals are just as responsible for the mental health of their working environment as they are for the physical health. So known risks need to be managed proactively inside your real estate business. And known risks include the statistics and the data, which is out there through both the RISE initiative and MRI have also released a whole lot of data that shows that this is an industry in mental health crisis. And if you don't have good procedures and processes for helping your team members deal with abusive clients, report in if they're coming close to burnout, know how to, the old idea of telling them to, toughen up, princess, take a cup of concrete, is going to land you in just as much trouble as someone slipping and hurting their back on a not swept up, piece of water or something like that.
Yeah.
Or broken tile.
Yeah. Good to hear. What about the energy efficiency legislation that's coming in? Where does that sit? It hasn't come in yet, but what's happening at a state and federal level is that governments are coming together to identify, and they've done this at a commercial level. And so the commercial property sector is very far ahead of residential in terms of energy efficiency of buildings. And they have a NABERS star rating system. And Australia actually pioneered this research and rolled it out across the world, where basically major commercial buildings have a star rating system that measures how effective and efficient they are. And the data now shows inside commercial real estate that buildings that have a higher star rating, and it's I can't remember, 5, 7, something like that. But the higher the energy efficiency rating, the more rent they get, because the running costs are less, right? So you're paying, and the amenity is seen to be better, and the quality of work-life balance or whatever, but the quality of the work environment is seen to be more effective. What's now happening across state and federal levels is, and with the CSIRO, is working on a rating system for residential housing. Now, it's not in place yet, but it is definitely coming. Yep. And what that means is that across Australia's $10 trillion asset class, and the banks are working on this already, because they need to understand the risk assessment of their mortgage portfolios, how much of their mortgages that they've got out there are to properties that are not energy efficient. What we're seeing, though, from the early outcomes of that is that over 80% of Australia's existing residential property is of a 2-star or around 2 stars. Now, that is out of 7 stars. Now, some of that is because until recently, the technology to make things 7 stars hasn't existed. The majority of our housing stock is, all been built before sort of 1980, it makes sense, right? We've been building properties like this for the past 200 and something years. It makes sense that they would not all be
7 stars. But this is really interesting if you're a property investor or if you're interested in the property market, because in the old days, being 5 years ago, we used to look at properties that were renovators' delights. Like you look at a property to see, well, can I do something to this to make it worth more? And traditionally that would be, can I knock out a wall? Can I make it a bit more open plan? Can I upgrade the kitchen? Can I, what can I paint? What is the not structural work that I need to do to pretty this place up to either flip it or to just rent it for a little bit more money, right? What we are going to see, though, is the new renovators' delights actually being properties that are lower stars that can be more easily turned into higher stars through that lens. But I can't stress enough, Bushy, how this is going to fundamentally change what happens in property for the next 5 years, because we've seen the contractor and the tradie and the supply chain issues that came out of COVID.
Yeah.
A couple of things are going to come out of this as this becomes the norm. There is going to be a moment in time where the home owning populace, so all those baby boomers and Gen X, go, what the hell do you mean my property is only 2 stars? And that is going to create a flurry of activity to understand, well, how do I make it worth more? Like there's going to be a very big education piece that needs to be played in this space to help people understand, what do I need to do? And how do I assess the products and the things that I need to add to my property? That's going to be, there's going to be a crunch around getting those products into market, finding suppliers who are reliable and trustworthy, who can deliver them. And in this space, that's where real estate agents and property managers have a huge role to play, because they already have trusted relationships with their suppliers and their tradies.
Yeah.
They know how to manage property and project manage property. And I think this is where we're going to start to see that the new model come out, where property managers actually start to manage property that is not necessarily rented, but is actually owned by people who I bought the property through you. You've got this subscription service or something. Can you help me with this? Because this is too big a project to get it up to. Or we're thinking of selling. We're only a 2-star at the moment. We want to get it up to a 4-star before we sell. So as well as, fixing the gutters and spray painting the bricks or cleaning up the garden, what do we actually have to do to change over to electricity or like, what is the size of that project going to look like? And is that juice worth the squeeze when it comes to sale time? Because what we're going to see is that in a street where there are 2 4-bedroom homes, where they both have Miele appliances and open plan living and a swimming pool and 2 bathrooms and stuff like that, one will be 7-star rating or 6-star rating, and one will be 3 or 4-star rating. And the difference in price, even though those properties may be identical in terms of features that we have traditionally looked at in terms of same number of bedrooms, same number of car spaces, we're going to be looking at different features to understand the value of it. And the valuation in the banking industry are getting all over this right now.
Very exciting. As a ex-architect, Kylie, I'm really excited about the opportunity that's going to bring both uplift the efficiency of properties, but also the industry and the investor opportunity to take advantage of that rating system to introduce another area where they can potentially add value above and beyond the traditional. And what I also love about what you're sharing with us is that, reaching that tipping point, I've already seen in the industry where there's been a big shift because of the technological enablement that's come into the industry, where not even 10 years ago, it was really difficult to convince someone to buy a property not in their backyard. Much easier proposition now to get people to become borderless in their outlook around property because of all of the technological advancement that's happened. It makes it very easy for people to actually get a much better feel for locations and properties remotely.
Stay with us, Bushy and Kylie. We'll be back after this short break.
Hi. Just before we get back to the show, I want to take a couple of seconds to tell you about a great live and free workshop that you can enjoy that's going to unpack the art and science of true property investment. And it's got the potential to transform your investment approach and give you a GPS that's going to help you to achieve your version of financial freedom. Now, it's fair to say that there's lots of property information out there these days that can often leave you more confused, but very few provide you with the information and the inspiration that's going to give you the comfort and clarity to make better informed property investment decisions on the road to your ideal lifestyle. It's why I strongly suggest that regardless of where you're at on your property investment journey, be it as a beginner or an experienced investor, you need to take the time to do yourself a favour and invest in one of Get Rare Property's upcoming free live online workshops, which is hosted by active investor and highly acclaimed national buyer's agent, Rusty Vipave, who's also the author of the must-read book, The Property Wealth Blueprint. So take a second now and jump on getrare.com.au/financial freedom. Repeating that again, that's getrare.com.au/financial freedom as the first step to taking your property investment to the next level.
This is Realty Talk, powered by realty.com.au.
Welcome back. We rejoin the conversation with Bushy and Kylie.
Putting all this together, how is this likely to change how real estate professionals and their agencies are structured and run? And then we'll talk a little bit about the opportunities that are coming out of all of this.
Yeah, I think property management is moving away from being something that happens off to the side while the glory boys go out and sell stuff. I think property management is going to become the heart and soul of all real estate businesses. We are also seeing, because of these changes around, Fair Work and the legislation and the sheer energy that is required to run a business that has an HR function and an EAP function, or there's a lot of compliance that is required, that is almost becoming, and technology understanding and having a technology roadmap for your business, and all of these things are making it really difficult for mum and dad and a couple of girls on the back office to those offices to exist unless they're part of a bigger system that is supplying those areas. So what we saw during COVID was that those businesses that had really good technology, or had a technology plan, didn't have to be really good. They just had to have an idea as to what they were going to do, and ideally have migrated to the cloud. We saw those businesses that had half a clue in that space start to really separate from the pack. And Macquarie's new benchmark report shows some of this as well in it quite clearly. You can see that real estate is becoming more corporatized. Residential real estate is becoming more corporatized. We are moving away from being a cottage industry of mum and dad operators to, sure, we can still be small businesses, but we're becoming bigger small businesses. And in that way, we are having bigger, better processes and structures and employee protections and better commitments to clients. And all of that is being done in a lot more of a, compliant and robust way, or more process-driven way. What we're seeing too, though, is that now, this is only just starting to be talked about, but I think this last bit around what's coming down the pipe with energy efficiency is going to be the thing that makes this definitely happen, that property management will be at the centre of it. So every real estate agent on the planet is desperate for leads. Every real estate on the planet not every real estate on the planet, but there is a disconnect between the desire for leads and the repeat business that comes through. What's missing is that glue in the middle of, why would I, in the 7 to 12 years when I'm not buying or selling, why would I have a reason to stay in touch with my real estate agent? Well, the same reason like you would have a reason to stay in touch with your lawyer or your dentist. Like, you don't really want to hang out with those people, but you know that they're there when you need them. Yeah. But if there's a service that they're offering across that period. And so that's where I think that subscription service of property management, one of the great, and here's my personal anecdote, but backed up by conversations with hundreds of friends. My husband and I own a couple of investment properties. We've been very, very lucky. And the two properties that I care the least about are the ones that are the least problem to me when they're our investment properties, right? But so when something goes wrong with either of those, somebody sends me an email or reaches out to me on the phone and says, the fan's blown out on the exhaust fan for the stove. It's under the amount, you're good with us to fix it. Totally, absolutely, please fix it. Like, done. Like, take it out of the next month's rent. Good, fine. When it happened, and we do not have a functioning exhaust fan. I am deeply unhappy with my oven. I do not like my stovetop. I really, really, really want someone in my house that is not me, ideally my husband, to fix it in my house. It doesn't work. But it involves rock, scissor, paper and, the edge of divorce to come up with who's going to take the time to get the quotes or to find the tradies who then will or won't turn up to do something, who then do or don't quote over a period of time where I've completely lost track of where we're up to. And then I can never remember, I've lost the will to live over whether we actually do it or not. It makes no sense. I want one throat to choke, and that throat should not be my husband's on fixing things. And I might not be the majority, but I am part of a growing market of people who see their time as valuable, who would like to pay someone for some service. I want one phone number in my phone that I can call to say, can I get a quote on fixing the thing that's not work? My house isn't working. Make it work. So I think that's where, and then also we need solar panels. We're wanting to upgrade our property. What does a sensible upgrade process look like? And even if you're buying something right now, knowing this is a 2-star home, but it's our forever home. We're going to be here for the next, 10, 15 years while the kids grow old here or grow through school. What do we do over that 10, 15-year period to turn it into a 7-star home so that whatever the stars are in 15 years, who's going to help me do that? Who's going to partner with me? Is that 26 million or 20 million homeowners individual problem to solve? Or is there an industry out there that could lean into that problem and offer help? Oh yeah, there is. It's called real estate agents. It's just that our business model and our way of thinking around it, because we're so busy chasing leads the way we've always chased them, hasn't adjusted to that. And that's where the technology can help us.
I love it. There's several things I love about what you're sharing with us, and that is, firstly, that the unsung heroes of the real estate industry, property managers, are finally going to see spend some time in the sun. But secondly, I think that property managers are also got the potential to become project managers in the context of talking about, and the blurring the line between a property manager and a selling agent. They're going to start to come together and create a different skill set, essentially, that's going to address the issues that are current in the industry. So very exciting on that front. I'd love for you to share, we've talked about the property professionals to some degree, but what are the opportunities for property investors, buyers and sellers in the space, given the changes that you're seeing coming from the PropTech side of the equation?
Well, I think if you're buying, regardless of whether you're buying for yourself or whether you're buying as an investment property, I think look at the properties, like start from now, right? Look at the properties that you're considering through that energy efficiency lens. CSIRO on their website have a thing called livability. It has 17 points that make a property livable. It's a great starting point to understand what energy efficient. It's not just, do they capture the rainwater or do they do grey stuff? It's actually, what are the things that do or don't exist, they might not exist yet, in this property that make it more affordable to run.
Yeah.
If they're used properly. So look at the properties that you're wanting to buy now that you can do that work to increase its value as you live in it or own it or rent it out, because we are moving into a new era where the haves and the have-nots inside property ownership, like we see in commercial. There are property owners who own, very high-end, high-star rated that get premium rents, and then there are people who own the rest of the stuff, right? So we're going to start to see residential fall into classes, in class system of good, of, you know, excellent, okay, and pretty piss poor energy efficiency. And what will happen if you are a landlord owning a lower end property is that you'll struggle to get the rents that you want. You know, and look, maybe that's hard to imagine right now where you know, vacancy rates are so low, but things will start to change quite quickly, and you don't want to get caught out by it. You want good tenants who rent long term in great properties that, you know, that you can just put money in the bank with.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very excited about the changing dynamics and the opportunity that's going to create. And I want to really thank you for sharing these very informative and inspiring insights, Kylie. And thanks again for joining us on Australia's longest running and most popular property show here on Property Hub.
Successful property investment is a game of finance. Do you have the right team and the right game plan? Realty Talk is brought to you by Know How Property. More than mortgage brokers, Bushy Martin and his team of investment architects set you up with a sustainable strategy structured to lower your costs, tax, risk and stress while increasing your capacity for growth. Know How has helped over 1,900 homeowners and investors secure more than $800 million in property wealth. So get set to live more, work less, and live your legacy. Want to know how to invest in your freedom? Visit knowhowproperty.com.au. Subscribe now to Realty Talk. It's out every week.
And that brings us to the end of this week's show. A big thanks to Kylie Davis and Bushy for a really great show. Make sure you don't miss a single episode of Realty Talk or Bushy's Get Invested podcast, delivered to you each and every week by subscribing to the Property Hub. You can do that now on your favourite podcast player or wherever you're listening to or watching this show. Thanks to our content partners once again, to realty.com.au. Watch out for that special episode next week on Discovery Search. Also BMT Tax Depreciation, Know How Property Finance, Get Rare Property and Apiro Marketing. I'm Kevin Turner on behalf of Bushy and the Property Hub team. We look forward to seeing you again next week.